Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast, is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. We are back with you here once again. Guess where we are, kids? Season 2, baby. We made it. This is episode 1 of season 2. Hope you guys have enjoyed the ride thus far. We've very much enjoyed doing the show for you. And it's been a blast. Getting to watch this for the second time through has been great. Unlike these two guys, I'm actually going episode by episode, and I'm forcing myself to stop, which is not the easiest thing because it's a very binge-worthy series, but I'm forcing myself to stop. So there you go. But again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks very much for subscribing and downloading, whether it's you're checking us out on YouTube, on video. If you are, hi. If you're not, you're just subscribing to the audio version of the pod. Again, hi. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking us out. And thanks for sharing. We always want you to share the show on all your feeds, all your socials. We very much appreciate it. There you go. We've got business out of the way. Let's get to the meat of the show here. I'm joined as always by Joe Higgens and Jay Luft. Boys, here we are. Season 2, episode 1. I'm as pumped can be. Joe, let's start with you. What do you think about this? Like at the end of season 1, when you first watched this, what did you expect? What were you hoping for going into season 2?
It's one of those, because the end of season 2, it ends on quite a high. We've lost, like Roy's had to retire, but we get a swear out of Ted, right? And it's like they're pumped to like, okay, yeah, well, we're just going to have to go back up again. And it does give you that thing of how are they going to do that? They were already there, but they've lost Roy and they've lost Jamie at this point now. So they've got no sort of star player, no ace on their team. Mm. So how are they going to combat that? I also like the fact that we get that nice little recap package on Apple as well of just the beats of that first season. Not all the stuff that you need to know, but if you've forgotten, like I have, it's all there for you to go, oh yeah, right, that's where this is going. But it's exciting to see now how they're going to claw their way back up into the Premiership without Roy, without Jamie. But everyone's on board now. Everyone's on the same page. There's no more trying to destroy the team. Everyone wants to win. How that works, I don't know. Will it work? We'll have to find out.
They did a really good job in that opening scene, though, of kind of like illustrating who were now the star players. Like they were talking about Sam stepping up and kind of filling the void of Roy and obviously Dani Rojas, the other ace.
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely felt like a really good sort of like jumping off point the way it was set up as well. Like a couple of games in, they're already struggling. Ted just wanted to tie, and now he's got 8 of them.
Which is one more will be a record for the most ties, which is tied also. It was
Southampton and Swansea.
Yeah,
that's real world. So 9 is the record. Real world, is that true?
I have no idea.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I didn't do the research
I don't know.
on that.
I'll Google it right now.
It feels like it probably is. They tend to do their research pretty well on stuff like that. But also, I think it's just a throwaway gag for the commentary team of what he says, like, I'm right brain dominant or whatever. So I think it's just a throwaway joke.
Nice. Season 1 is a thing to behold. It's like a where did that come from sort of show for me. Like, I can't believe it's this good. I can't believe it's this deep. I can't believe it's this emotional. Looking back on it now, of course it is, and you're used to it. But at the time, during the first pass of it, I'm like, yeah, this is effing phenomenal. And then, the progress, as we said in season 1, kids, the progress that Ted makes, not only with the team, but with people around him, and dominoes fall. You know what I mean? Trent Krim is the first domino to fall. Roy Kent's the second domino to fall. You could say maybe the team as a whole possibly is the third domino to fall, with exceptions, of course. And then we get the ultimate domino in Rebecca in the end. I mean, it's going into season 2. There's still some dominoes left to fall, as we know.
I've just done the Google. They were so close. They got the teams right, but it
Go
was
on.
actually 8 consecutive draws.
Ah,
So they were already
Right.
tied.
yeah, okay.
Nice.
But yeah, it's
But it was Southampton and Swansea.
that first season is very much like a bolt from the blue. I only
Yeah.
started watching it after the end of the second season because someone was like, "Watch this, you'll love it." So I literally did them all in like 3 days.
Same.
And that first season is just like, "What is this? This is great." And then it gives you everything you need to know. It builds all the foundations and the base up, and the second season just sprinkles more on top of it while maintaining that level of what is this? Because it's a program essentially about a football team, but not. It's about the interactions of everyone involved, and the football is kind of secondary to that. And I think that's why I like it so much as well. Not a sports guy.
Oh, well, same. But thanks to these two guys, full disclosure, I'm now watching football.
You're watching
Football is life.
Yeah, you are more than me. Yeah,
I am every Saturday the Premier League, so there's a free bit of promotion for those guys. Yeah, and you know what? Going into season 2 as well, season 2 of any show, you gotta follow up your first hit. You gotta follow up your first film. Like, is this band for real? Let's check out the second album. So I mean, you got to bring it in season 2, and my God, this show just got better and better. And fast forward for a bit, you know how many people are complaining about season 3, and I'm like, this is why we can't have nice things. It's because people are dumb as hell. Let's be honest. Yep. Complain about season 3 from start to finish. I'm like, what is wrong with people, man? This is amazing television we're getting.
Oh yeah. I mean, you look at stuff like first season of Lost, brilliant. I was fully on board with it. Second season, it's just people sitting about. This is boring. Never watched it after that. Might have got better, might not have done. I don't know. Don't care.
Right.
Walking Dead, first season, brilliant. Second season, a lot of people sitting about. Read the books, a lot better. Never went back to it because, it's that thing of the second season is the difficult season because you've used all your A material on the first season. But I think with this, they always said it was going to be that and then done. They had a beginning, middle, and end. They knew where they were going with it. And that's why it works so well, because it's structured. It's not just, oh, shit, we've been recommissioned. Let's have a crazy cousin show up who's also an alien. Like the Flintstones-y sort of. You know what I mean? But it is.
Yeah.
That's when you're out of ideas, start marrying them off to each other. That's what kills these things. And especially with like American sitcoms. Kazoo, that was it, yeah.
Kazoo,
with American sitcoms, when they start running out of ideas, they start marrying characters off to each other.
Yeah.
And that's what kills it, because you've lost 2 characters who then become 1 character. None of that with this. Everyone is such a strong individual character. Even when they're with someone, they still function as a separate entity.
I felt like these first 2 episodes as well did a really good job of starting to establish some of the more like tertiary characters, like specifically Colin and Zorro. Like
Zorro.
You see them a little bit more prominently. Obviously, they were kind of like just sort of on the sideline, so to speak. You see they're starting to get a bit more character development. A few other characters as well. They're just getting not tons, but just enough that it's kind of like, okay, I'm intrigued at what this person's doing.
You're getting C and D storylines, basically, which is what you need in this, because the first season the team are there, but they're never fully sort of introduced. And in this, they start going, well, you're going to have a storyline, and you're going to have a storyline, and it's all going to weave together beautifully. It's the Dan Harmon school of sitcom writing. The wheel.
Yeah. The wheel.
Yeah.
Being able to know, and we're all pro wrestling guys, so we keep throwing up metaphors, but just like a great booker, being able to know when to go left, when to go right, when to stay the course, when to change, when to pivot. And there's only a few guys in the history of the business, in my opinion, who have gotten to that point and conducted themselves that way and made a living off that and did great business. So just like with a series, being able to know, okay, we can't go there yet, we're going here first. And man, it worked. For me, it worked with this show, Jay, from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that is interesting as well with you saying, obviously, about the sort of difficult second album analogy, it's interesting that obviously like they're in the championship now, they're in the second division, they've got to bounce back up to the heights they were at. I imagine that was done by design.
Oh yeah,
because it's always good to add a little bit of a redemption arc in the middle, isn't it?
Sure.
But yeah, I felt like this really got off to a strong start from where it left off.
Yeah, it's the fall, rise, and then ultimate completion of the thing. That's your arc.
Yeah.
It's again. I say this for everyone, but it is like a great episode as well. We get a lot of Roy in this. We get a lot of Roy development throughout this season, actually.
Big time.
But also, we're introduced to a new character who features prominently throughout it, and we get possibly one of my favorite moments in this of Dani Rojas.
Dani Rojas. Well, let's go ahead and get to it because I'm anxious to do it. Let's get to that moment. Let's get to everything that's awesome about this show. Ted Lasso, kids, if you're ready, we're ready. We're going to do this. Ted Lasso, Season 2, Episode 1. The title of this episode is Goodbye, Earl. And when you find out what it means, it's funny and tragic at the same time. Original air date, July 23rd, and that's 2021. Directed by Declan Lowney. Story by Brendan Hunt. Hello, Coach Beard himself. 12 episodes in Season 1 versus 10. I'm sorry, in Season 2 versus 10 from Season 1. So we're a couple more episodes of goodness and happiness to give to you kids. And honestly, believe me when I tell you, I can't wait to tackle it and hope you guys enjoy. Let's dig in. When last we left the Ted Lasso gang, we saw two main characters, Rebecca Welton and Roy Kent, experience substantial personal growth. And we also saw the rise of Nate Shelley in his new role with the team, as well as the departure of Jamie Tart, who showed only glimpses of evolution as a player and as a man. But all of this was made possible by the man himself, the unlikely new head coach of AFC Richmond, who struggled with the loss of his marriage and the challenges of leading a team in a city whose people and former owner do not want him there. So we open with a close-up of Nate, a bit of foreshadowing perhaps, gentlemen, a tight close-up.
Yeah.
As no wasted movement. Yeah. As AFC Richmond and Nottingham Forest are tied at 2-2, Sam passes to Dani, who gets a penalty. Richmond started the season with 7 straight ties. And listen, can we take a moment to appreciate that a first-year coach who's barely ever even seen English football played, much less coached it, has tied 7 games in a row? I mean, from your stance as longtime football guys, Jay, you especially, would you not be impressed by that as someone who'd never even coached the game before?
I would be. Also, I think with the way football is nowadays, he'd be kind of having the fans calling for his head a little bit at this point. When the drawing, it's not too bad. When you start like racking up losses, obviously, but the fact that he'd be just kind of like middling in the table at that point, he might even be lower down, and they're a team that are expected to bounce back up. He'd probably have a lot of pressure on him in the real world. He'd probably be leading the sack race, as they call it.
Yeah. It's all about winning.
That's fair. See, to me, I was thinking, man, if you've never coached it before.
A guy of his experience level, for sure, like he's doing a fantastic job.
We see the commentators back from Season 1. This is Arlo Wyatt and Chris Powell, both playing themselves here. They are the voice of the show, the narrators of the show, perhaps in some odd way. Nate asks if it's okay if he prays, and Ted says yes, but to which God and in what language? So right out the gate, we get a Ted doing his Ted stuff, which is great.
Stuff.
Yeah. Beard says,
goes, cross your fingers.
Yep. Cross your fingers, make a wish. Ted says, there you go.
There you go.
And
they all do it.
They all do it. Dani is taking the penalty kick, and we see Earl Greyhound, the team's mascot, eyeing a bird. And we know where this is going. Dani says, football is life. And Earl breaks free, and it's all in slow motion. He's headed straight for the bird. The ball strikes the dog, and Nate hits the signature, oh, my God. And he tells Ted and Beard that he promises it's not what I wish for.
Not what I wished for. Yeah. I was like, it's a surreal wish if it was, Nate, isn't it?
I know, right?
It was only when I rewatched this, I was like, Earl Greyhound. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. That'll be
bad.
Yeah, yeah, it's just again a dumb throwaway joke, but it's there. But, right, question: would that not be retaken?
It will be retaken, yeah.
Yeah, I thought as much, just due to
To be honest, if a bird had got on the pitch, they would have probably scared it off
shoot
before
it
they
off
took the
anyway.
penalty.
Yeah,
And also, they wouldn't have had a fella holding a dog at pitch side.
Yeah, it's not Sunday League, is it? Yeah.
No, not at that level. There is a precedent for it where a game got stopped once because a cat ran onto the pitch. And it got stopped for 6 minutes while they were trying to get this cat off the pitch. No one could get it to leave the pitch.
Though, yeah, doing that pat thing with their hands. Yeah.
It's happened over here too. It's hilarious when it happens because the crowd doesn't help because they're cheering the animal on. They're clapping for it and stuff. It's great. Rebecca and Higgins are walking down. They kind of burst through the double doors and they're walking down the hall. And she's worried that the crowd will hate them for what happened to the dog. He says a perk of playing in a lower division is that they're not on TV as much. She says, "What about the internet?" He goes, "Oh, right, the goddamn internet."
Leslie's forgotten entirely about the internet. That's the thing.
He's forgotten. And we start off season 2 with the owner and her director of football operations or whatever he's called. They're now like this, guys.
Yeah,
this is
we're
how
on the same page.
Remember how we kicked off season 1 and she's immediately in a foul mood and she's talking down to him and she doesn't want him there and she's upset, and what a turn.
Now they feel like equals.
Yes.
They both want the club to succeed. Higgins has always wanted the club to succeed. And now Rebecca is like, yeah, I want to make it succeed, so rub it in Rupert's face that even without him, I can succeed. That is more hurtful than making them fail.
For sure. Absolutely.
If you think about it. But it is nice that all the way through this, especially in this episode as well, the fact that they are okay with each other. They've buried that hatchet after the Beard Jazz double bass incident. And they're just mates now. They're back to what they used to be before all of that first season horribleness happened. And it's lovely because we get to see Higgins do Higgins stuff without being cowering kind of all the time out of fear of Rebecca. We get this kind of joyful, beautiful version of him.
It's true. It's
Higgins
great.
is low-key the best character in the first 2 episodes. Just by being a bumbling English dad.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole other show, right? That's a remake of My Three Sons right there. Boy, would that be a fun remake. I'd be here for it. As if on cue, when he talks about the internet, Keely pops up with the phone and says, "Twitter's going bonkers." Rebecca says, "Did we really make Michael Jordan cry?" Which is great. Keely says, she says, "You showed it to Ted?" She says, "Ted told her, now don't you fret, Boba Fett," and says he's got it covered, which makes them go, "Oh God," they just look at each other like, "Oh no."
Yeah, Ted's not going to read the statement that they prepared. Ted's going to go out and do Ted stuff. Yeah.
Yes. He's going to go off script. We go to the press room, and Marcus Adebayo, played by Marcus Onalude, not much of a difference there, from The Independent. He's asking Ted about the game and about the team's efforts. Ted puts over Sam, who's filling the Roy Kent void. Marcus asks how many more matches can end in a draw before he hits the panic button. Ted says there's 2 buttons he doesn't like to hit, panic and snooze. So there you go.
It's not an answer, though. It's just
it's a non-answer.
Yeah. It's a fun answer, right?
Little bit of foreshadowing there, maybe as well.
Oh, yeah. That's
the whole panic button.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Ted calls on Trent Krim next, played by the great James Lance. Thank you very much. Who insists on fully introducing himself every single time.
Yeah, but
never
every
gets
time
old.
he does, we get because every time now he goes Trent Krim and everyone else goes The Independent. It's there's these great call and response things that happen all the way through it. It's just again one of those fun running jokes that they have.
I love the way he just kind of rolls his eyes and grins as well. He's fully in on the bit,
and he's
also,
okay.
I love.
He likes Ted, but
also it's weird that The Independent would have 2 journalists there.
I was going to ask about that.
I think Trent might just be there as a friend of Ted's, possibly. Or this could be setting up stuff for later on down the line.
Oh yeah, but it's weird that they had like the two set, because I think Marcus was on a different paper in the first season anyway, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah,
I don't know.
He was. Either way, but
Yeah.
it'd be weird that they'd have more than one journalist on the paper. Usually, they just have like an allocated journalist like going to each team sort of press thing.
Especially for a championship team as well.
Yeah.
He asked Ted, Trent asked Ted for comments on the dog that Dani killed. Ted responds with, Trent Crim bringing the heat. Join the Untitled Wrestling Podcast for all the latest pro wrestling news from around the world. Want to dive deeper? Interviews, fantasy booking, roundtable discussions, quizzes, video game streaming, watch-alongs, and a lot more can all be found on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. You can also find the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Untitled Wrestling Podcast, and Twitter, Twitch, and Discord at Untitled Rest Pod. Follow, subscribe, and download today. And then suddenly, out the gate, we get this huge story. They're like, I don't know if I was prepared for this in the first 4 minutes of season 2, episode 1. And you almost kind of wait for a funny anecdote, and there's not one. Like,
there isn't. It's the story about how he, when he was 3, was attacked by a dog. And it turns out it was his next door neighbor's dog. His next door neighbor's wife died, and he stopped looking after the dog. So, like, Ted looked after the dog, and then the dog became his, and then he had to have the dog put down due to old age. And it ends with, like, it's one of these really good things that it does, is, like, out of just this weird story that comes out of nowhere about Ted being frightened of dogs and learning to cope with his fear, we get, it's funny to think about the things in your life that can make you cry just knowing that they existed, can then become the things that make you cry knowing that they're gone. I think those things come into our lives to help us get from one place to a better one. And that last line should just be called the Ted Lasso effect.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what Ted has done when he was in his college team and thinking he isn't there for a long time, but he's there to make everyone the best version of themselves. It's just quite an oddly poignant thing to say about a dead dog.
But it's also the exact way the fans react towards Ted. So they were crying that he was there, and then eventually they'll end up crying that he's leaving.
And it's the same as his marriage, and it's there's all these similarities that are very nicely woven into Dani Rojas kicking a dog to death.
Heck of a way to sum it up there. No, you're right. We're doing some serious onion peeling right now. You know what that leads to? Tears. So everybody brace yourselves. So yeah, it's there's always a point to show the reporters when moments like this happens, and they're giving these very thoughtful looks into Ted. And I'm like, if he didn't have the press by the end of season 1, he's got him now, I'll bet. Yeah. Because, the press, for as much as they're vultures or can be or whatever, which, shout out to journalists out there who are actually making an effort to do their jobs. But
not just put tweets in your article and call that a day. Yeah.
Thank you. Well said. They know when they're being played, and Ted's the real deal. You know what I mean? I said,
do you not think it's the fact that Ted treats them like people?
Thank you.
And no one has ever done that to them because they're scum. Like, and so it's like, oh yeah, we'll cut Ted some slack. This isn't really an answer, but also he's showing us that a sort of vulnerability about himself here. And then Trent asks about Dani. Well, I haven't spoken to him, but I'm sure he's doing fine.
And then we get this amazing moment. Cristo Fernandez, by the way, the great Dani Rojas. We see it's another tight close up of Dani in the shower, and he's praying and crossing himself, and he keeps doing it, and the water's coming down over his head. And Zorro, and I'm going to butcher his name, played by Mo Judy Lamour. I don't know if that's right or not. Along with Beard, Nate, Ted, and Colin, played by Billy Harris. Zorro says that Dani's been like that for almost 20 minutes. The camera cuts back, and Dani is still in uniform. You kind of assume maybe he was in the shower showering. He wasn't. He was in full uniform.
He's just gone straight from the field and stood in the shower, out of his head, and just mumbling and crossing himself, like in
Praying.
the shower. It's one of my favourite, like, just cold cuts to a bit. It's just Dani mumbling in the shower about death to himself.
I love it. And Colin.
Then Colin goes, he's going to use all the hot water up.
Yeah. I love Beard's reaction to that, where he just says, "I was like, get."
Yeah. Ted carefully approaches, asks Dani what he's doing. He's like you'd come up on a snake or something. You know, he doesn't know how to approach him. And Dani says he's washing the death off of him. Ted looks back at Beard and Nate, and he just like that, you know, and he tells Dani, he said, I recommend a little soap. Helps get the eternal rest out of those tough to reach places. And I'm thinking, this is a bad time for humor, you know. But Dani says, gracias.
Knows, though, isn't it? It's disarming people with just pleasantries. And Dani just goes, okay, coach. It's like straight back to just,
yes. Ted reminds him that football is life. Dani responds with, I know it. It used to be. And then he goes back to praying. So, yeah.
It's not that. He goes, he leans his face out of the shower and goes, it used to be. But now football is death. And then just goes back in, facing the shower and mutters. And it's just a really delightful scene of a man slowly losing his mind.
It's true. That poor dog. Earl didn't stand a chance.
Earl was very old.
And you're at the net. You're going to kick it hard. Of course you are. But Dani is a really good player. And we've seen before that when he kicks, it's like getting kicked by Kota Ibushi, I imagine. It's going to hurt. That dog didn't stand a chance.
No.
So Ted comes in the locker room and asks the team to give Dani some space and to just shower at home. Sam, played by Toheeb Chimal, I think, says that some of them prefer to take long baths at home. And several of the team go, yeah. And they're all like...
No, he asks for permission if it's okay to have a long bath.
God.
And Ted goes, that's fine as well.
It's one of those moments, and we've talked about this season 1, where something weird will be said or funny or goofy, and several players will go, yeah. Like they're all on the same page. Oh, my God.
I think
it like resonates.
Find that football players are kind of a bit thick. Like, and they're like, he's not saying have a shower. He's just saying go home and clean yourselves up. Like, but again, Sam's like, can I have a hot bath? Yes, you can have a hot bath, Sam.
Sure.
Okay. And he gets home and his mum says, Ted says, I can have a bath, Mum. It's just such a bizarre, childish question to ask.
It's like the peanut butter bit from season 1 where he mentions on the field what he does. And Roy's like, fucking good idea, actually. And they're all like, yeah. You know.
There's loads of it. When they're doing the burning in the barrel thing, there's lots of the team just going,
yeah.
It helps show that they have like this camaraderie now, that they're all on the same page as each other. And like Ted says to them, like, go home, be goldfish, and we'll see you bright and early. Like, and we're introduced to Jan Maas.
Yes.
This is the first time we see Jan Maas. I think it is.
Jan Maas is great.
I feel like we see him briefly in the first season, but he doesn't really speak much.
Maybe that's what it was.
This is like the first like proper like introduction to him as a character.
Yeah, because he asks Colin, be a goldfish. What does that? He must be a transfer because he would have been there for the goldfish conversation.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No, that makes more sense.
And Colin says, "Oh, it's even though like we some of us made mistakes. It's forget it and come back next week." And he just goes, "I didn't make mistakes. Only you played bad." And everyone kind of stops and goes, "Oh!" And is it Sam or is it Zorro?
It's Sam. Points out like the
Sam who goes, "He's not being rude. He's just Dutch."
Yeah.
And they all go, "Oh, yeah." Oh. And Jan Maas is like, like, yep, that's how it is.
I think the Dutch were notorious for their like direct curtness.
The very.
I was going to ask you guys.
No, the Dutch people I've met have been lovely people.
Lovely, but they can be like quite like direct about things, and it can come across as being like extremely rude when it's like, no, it's just the way they are. It's same Germans, isn't it? They can do the same.
Yeah. I think it might be,
It's just like a cultural thing, I guess.
If your language is quite literal, then you will be
Yeah.
quite a literal people, whereas we're like quite poetically, a lot of metaphors and similes and that. Yeah.
Jan played here by David Elsendorn. So there you go. I'm going to like this guy. You can already tell you're going to like this guy. We get more of him in this episode. Ted gets a message from his son who's wearing 7 ties. Nice little, his kid thinks it's funny. Maybe Ted not so much. Ted tells Nate and Beard that the ties stuff are all his fault. It's celestial payback. He was hoping for a tie during the Man City game, and now the Karma Police are making good for showing him what happens when he messes with them. Nate says the team is playing well, just a little unlucky.
Did you not get the reference in that to the Karma Police?
The Radiohead one.
The Radiohead song Karma Police. The chorus of it is "This is what you get when you mess with us."
Well done.
It's just one of those things. I thought there must be a reason
this
it's
is what
included
you
the term
want.
Karma Police, and this is what you want. Yeah, it's there as well. But
so when you see Nate here, it's got to be noted that Nick Muhammad, shout out Nick Muhammad for Nate Shelley's performance. It's fantastic because he is visually, physically different. He's not the same guy. And you imagine what we saw in season 1 and in the months between seasons, things have changed. He's matured or something, but he looks not like a different actor, but it's a completely different look.
he's
Like,
sort of
you know what I
holding
mean?
himself different.
Yes.
It's not on the same thing, but have you seen that bit of footage from when Christopher Reeve transforms from Clark Kent to Superman?
So
And he
good.
just sort of unhunches himself. And
Yeah.
he's kind of done, not to the same level, but he is just holding himself that he's kind of like got an air of confidence around him for the first time. Even though he is still quite, like around Ted and Beard especially, he's still quite, have I said the right thing? But as we see, like coming up in a minute, he's become something of a bit of a bastard.
A douche. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a douche. We gotta insert the NFL line here. When Ted says that back home, if a team is playing poorly, we don't call them unlucky. What do we call them, Coach? Beard says New York Jets. It's a really good line.
I like as well when Nate starts kind of like showing his shift in attitude. Like Beard and Ted initially notice it, and they kind of just like go, "Oh, we'll let him figure it out on his own."
Yeah. Is it not when they're saying, "Well, how do we deal with Dani?" And and Nate's answer is, "We'll show him the size of the check he gets paid to play football." And that's when they look at each other and go, "That's not how we do stuff." Like there's a look between the two of them.
Yeah, there's other stuff as well, like later on where Nate will just have like that'll snap into like being an arsehole.
Yeah.
And you can just see Beard notice it immediately and be like, this is going to become a problem.
Yeah, because Will comes in. By the way, Will, the character Will, his last name is Kitman. So perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nominative determinism, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, right? And by the way, you just won the pony for that word. That was a great phrase, turn of words. I love that. Say it again. What is it?
Nominative determinism. It's when your name is what you end up being, not the other way round. Like if you grew up making barrels and your surname was Cooper, then that makes sense. But if you were called Fletcher and later on in life you decided to become an arrow maker, then that's how that works. And if his name is Kitman and he ends up becoming a Kitman, then that's nominative determinism.
I love it.
Don't say you don't learn stuff here, folks.
Hey, I'm telling you, we feed you educational. We're feeding you. I'm telling you.
I've just thought, isn't it when Will asks if you can leave early? That Nate,
because it's his mum's birthday.
Yeah, and Nate's like, "Oh, are you going to leave before all the players?" And then Ted's like, "Yeah, of course you can. Tell your mum we all said happy birthday." And they just kind of look at Nate.
He says no. He says, "What position does your mum play?"
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, it's his mum's birthday. Like, there's nothing going on. It's not a match day, is it? You just pick up the flight tomorrow.
The thing is that it's Nate's becoming a monster of Ted and Beard's creation because they've given that positive reinforcement, especially when he roasted the team.
Yes.
So in his head, he's thinking, well, this is how I'm going to get in the good books if I'm just a shit to everybody.
But that's the thing that really hurts me with Nate's thing as well, though, is like he was bottom of the pecking order for we don't know how long before Ted got there, right? So he's seen what it's like to have someone treat you like garbage, and he's fine with doing that to someone else, though, because it makes him feel better, makes him feel like a big man.
Yeah,
and it's not how Ted and Beard work, isn't it? Yeah. It's bullying mentality, but it is that thing of like it's just these subtle looks between Ted and Beard are like, oh, Christ.
I mean, it's bullying a freshman when you're a senior, and I'm like, you used to be a freshman. You're no better than anybody else. You just been here longer. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah,
existence is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, it's not hard to live. So I know where this is going to go. And kids, if you're watching the show for the first time, we'll try not to spoil it for you. But things don't get great from here with Nate. But I hate it. And you got to have conflict. Without conflict, there's no story. So I understand. Characters, conflict, and resolution. We got the characters, and we need conflict, and we need resolution. But I still hate to see it.
Credit to Nick Mohammed as an actor. Like,
yes,
the journey he goes on in the season, and he really does a great job of making you hate him by the end of it without giving too much away.
Well, and plus on top of that, it's the we spent all day on this because it's the driving plot of season 2, I think.
Yeah, is
we see his change, but it's the old discussion of how much of your behavior is your responsibility and how much of it is predicated on what you endured to get to the point you are now in this life. You know what I mean? Like, you can't discount what was done to you and what you were raised in and what you saw growing up. But at what point does that line blur and you're like, I have to be a man and I have to not make bad decisions? Like, I don't know. It's just a fictional show, but this is what's in my head. So.
No, but it's that breaking. I mean, not in this instance, but it's that breaking of generational boundaries. Like, I don't want to be like my father.
Yeah.
I want to be able to like talk to my children like they're real people and hug them and tell them that I love them and stuff like that. Not my dad, but like, it's that thing of like, it's every generation becomes further away from what the generation before was because old people are horrible.
Well, we'll end this segment by wrapping up and saying that Joe's father is evidently a terror. So we'll move on to the. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I liked it. At least they brought it back home at the end of this because Nate looks at the guys and they see what's happening, right? And he says, "You have to stay on them. Pressure makes pearls." And then he realizes he screwed up, and Ted says, "No, you didn't mess it up. You were just." Beard cuts him off and says, "Unlucky." And Ted's like, "Yes!" So it ties back to the unlucky part.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, Nate, it is almost like at this point, Nate's just trying to impress. Like, it's like he's trying to show his assertiveness to Ted and Beard and impress them. You now. Yeah. And like, that's the thing. When he messes up the line, he goes back to like sheepish Nate. He goes, "Oh God, shit, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
It's as I say, it's the mask's starting to slip with Nate, and I don't think even he realizes it yet. But just starting to see like some of his true colors coming out.
Yeah,
it's true. We go from this to Rebecca in her office with Higgins and Keeley. Higgins gets a text. They just received a giant food delivery from their rivals over at Brentford FC. Higgins says it's Thai food, like he doesn't understand, like Thai food. Oh, I get it. So it's a very quick thing, which is great.
Rebecca hands him a cocktail. She's made him a gin and tonic. Like,
very good.
They're all having just a little
I noticed that.
A little powwow, and it's just this nice thing. And Ted comes in.
Makes Ted an old-fashioned as well, doesn't she?
She does. And yeah, they have this thing. Higgins has to leave because he's watching The Empire Strikes Back with his children, and he has to prepare for the conversation about Luke and Leia kissing.
Ted says, "Hey, may the force be with you," and Higgins goes, "And also with you," like very straight face.
No, but I'm going, that's not the response to "May the force be with you." That's sign of peace in a Catholic church. And great. Also with you. That's what that is.
That's great. By the way, when she offered him a drink, She says, Ted, what do you say? What do you say to a cocktail? And Ted answers with, same thing I'd say to Diane Sawyer if she ever asked me out on a date. Yes, please. Another throwaway line.
Again, but just like, he could have just said yes, couldn't he? But he's got to put a little Tedism in front of it.
I has to. It's the rules.
And then, like, we get this great back and forth about Earl. Earl's owner says the dog is doing okay, and Rebecca tells him that he's looking at the very new, very generous, very guilt-ridden benefactor of Richmond's largest dog shelter, Barkingham Palace.
Ted, it's a good name.
It's a good name.
Earl's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, Earl's no longer with us.
Yeah.
They do a little toast to Earl as well, don't they?
They do. They toast Earl, which is great. Do you love films that have the same plot over and over and over and over again with only slightly different looking people in the main roles, but just don't have time to watch them all? You do? Then simply listen to Hallmark of Greatness, the only podcast that takes you through such masterpieces as Love at Sea, Love at Christmas, and A Volcano Sacrifice for Love. See a pattern here? Available wherever you get podcasts from, and also find us on social media by looking for Hallmark of Greatness. Rebecca gets a text, and her and Keely are excited. They're speaking in riddles to each other. It's a gentleman suitor that she's speaking to. They decide to do a double date, and Ted asks Keely if Roy came to the game, and she says no. He reminds her that Roy's always got a ticket waiting for him at the will call. He puts it under an alias, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, Shania Twain, and Keely says it's nothing personal. He's just wrapped up with his new coaching gig.
Hard smash cut to Roy berating, berating people. And if you play like that next week, you're not going to win the fucking cap, right? And then it just does a wide shot, and he's talking to 9-year-old girls.
You play like a bunch of little pricks, except for Cocaruda. Way to put your body on the line out there. And she's like, you know it, coach. Yeah, she hers all messed up.
On her head.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Like, Sharon's mum's brought orange slices. Don't eat the peels, you animals.
Yeah. Oh, Cocaruda's my hero. She's my favorite character now. Wish she got in a bigger role. Roy tells them that, about the orange slices, Miss Leanne Bowen, played by Ruth Bradley, who tells Roy that they're 8-year-old little girls. You can't call them little pricks, even when they're acting like little pricks. And Keely's there, and they offers to get them hot chocolate. I love, again, a mimicking of how we open the show. We get a tight close-up. This is 3 now. Nate, Dani, and now Roy, the tight close-up of him. And he's doing his Roy stuff, and you're like, and then the camera pans back, and it's the kids' team. It's freaking great, man. I love this stuff so much.
It's a good joke, yeah.
It is. Really good joke. Roy, Keely, and Phoebe are on a bench, and Roy swears. Phoebe takes note that he owes her £1. He says, put it on my tab, and she immediately takes out a notebook. And they're talking about the double date, which he reluctantly agrees to. Phoebe's happy that she got a red card for elbowing a girl in her neck.
I've never been more proud of you.
It's great. Keely's trying to get him to do something else besides hanging out with the yoga moms who know nothing about him, which is key.
Yeah.
That's why he's hanging out with them. We got that story in season 1. Mm-hmm. He says, no, I love it. And she says, Sky Sports called again. And he doesn't want to do it, but his retirement press conference got 15 million views. So we start hearing about this retirement press conference. We haven't seen it yet, but we're going to see it.
But his response of your way of making me want to do something is by reminding me how embarrassing I was.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying to get me to do something again by humiliating me again.
And he says, I don't want to be a fucking football pundit, sound a fucking telly in a dumb fucking suit like a know-it-all twat. It's a shit job for shit people. I'd rather shit out my own mouth, on my own fucking mouth, than do that fucking shit.
Phoebe is like just taking like tally notes.
Yeah, it's just like what's he on now? £1,236. That's impressive.
Remember that number, kid. That's coming back.
Yeah. I clocked that.
Love it. Love it. Dani's up for a penalty kick in a game, and it's a cartoon dog, which is wonderful.
Is proper Who Framed Roger Rabbit nonsense, this, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's the same two commentary guys. And going, he has to get it past this adorable keeper. And it's just a cartoon dog.
I'm glad you got that. I didn't get that down. That's good. He kicks the ball. The dog is holding a sign saying, "This is going to hurt." I love that. It's like a Wile E. Coyote. He's holding the sign in a cartoon. We see Dani get splattered in the face with blood, which is very gruesome.
It's quite graphic, for a comedy show. Yeah.
And he sits up in bed and yells, "Football is death" at the camera. And we have to recognize that he's not in bed alone. Like
two ladies.
He's got 2 wives.
Dani's a player. Dude.
Hey, I don't think he's married to him, Jay.
No.
Nah,
I think he
he
was just like, I am sad. And they were like, I'll make you feel better, Dani. And they did temporarily.
Well, they did. It worked for a little while, I imagine.
I'm assuming there was some doggy action. Stop it.
Oh, boo.
I've always got to lower the tone. I know.
It's a family show. What are you thinking? Well, that might be.
Well,
this isn't.
It is one of those things, because when it happened, and I was like, what is happening here? And then it's just a wake up screaming. I was like, oh, okay. I think that's the only time we ever do like dream traversal, despite the fact that Ted and Beard are very into like dream
Talking about their dreams.
Yeah, and like being friends with each other in dreams and stuff. It's the first time, I think it's the first and only time we ever see someone in a dream mode, which is just again a weird aside, but
Yes.
okay, I'll take it. It's not like bouncers dream in Neighbours, like, you know what I mean?
That's not real.
And
That's a reference for nobody.
I knew that. I knew the reference.
And I love that somebody at the table when they're working on the script for this episode said, "We should put 2 women in the bed with Dani." And the other one goes, "I like that idea."
I reckon it was like 5, 1. We'll compromise at 2.
We'll
I'm
go to
sure.
'Cause
2.
he's sad.
I'm sure he makes a reference in the first season to wanting 2 wives.
He does, yeah, actually. Yeah.
That's why I said his wives, because I was like,
Well
I'm
done.
almost certain he made a reference to it.
I totally forgot about that. I'm gonna be honest with
And then
you.
it becomes like a running joke throughout the show every now and again that they just have Dani with 2 wives.
Totally forgot about that. In Rebecca's office, Ted comes in to see her, and he knows that he hasn't seen someone that disappointed to see him since he wore a red baseball cap to a Planned Parenthood fundraiser, which is a great line. I love how they take lines at the former, doofus in chief of this great country of mine over here, and I'm here for it. So, yeah, whenever they can take shots, I say take them. I'm just saying.
Oh, but it's that good thing of American jokes, British jokes. Just put them all in there in a big melting pot, and some will land, some won't, but they're all good.
Episodes feel more Americanized and some feel more British
Yes,
as well.
I agree.
That's not a bad. It's not a bad thing.
No, not in a bad way. I think it's actually really well done in the way that it kind of like balances out the show.
Blends the
like,
two together very
This
well.
one felt like more of an Americanized episode, and then like for example, the darts one in the first season feels quite like probably the most British like sitcom, or the for the children.
Yes, for the children,
Like-
it's a British sitcom episode because it's
Yeah.
location shot and again, it's
But
just
yeah,
the subtle
yeah.
differences between American sitcoms and British sitcoms.
They
Nobody
do-
wants to hear my diatribe about this.
They do
No.
really good, like a really good balancing act though with it, is what I mean.
And you're dead on. I've read things about the show where they have acknowledged that in interviews and whatnot. Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt both, I believe, have acknowledged in interviews that it was, we're going to throw this in and throw this in, and maybe this wouldn't necessarily happen in the game, but we're going to throw it in, and maybe this joke would never land with a team in England from an American perspective, but we're going to have it land here. So yeah, no, I get it. It's you're 100%, but like you said, it serves both audiences, just as this podcast serves both audiences. Hey, see what I did there? Rebecca apologizes, and she says she was just hoping it was that he was Keeley, and he says, "That's okay. I wish I was Keeley like 3 or 4 times a day." It's a great line. You kidding me?
Yep.
He says he offers to stand in and says that. So she starts dishing about the guy on the phone that they've been going back and forth over. Says the guy's name is John, and Ted says
we get another
Stamos.
great get another great Ted misreading the entire situation entirely. Stamos? Sorry.
Right.
Like, and he's just like, so I remember girl talk sometimes just means girl listen.
Yeah. He's surprised that girl talk is basically girls can just be blabbing away about stuff and nothing really has to change and no one has to solve anything. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's different for sure. For sure.
Is it? We just spent like 30 minutes before we started recording this chatting about nonsense and nothing's been resolved. Like, it's just conversation, isn't it? Girl talk is just conversation about things that women can't talk to men about. I'm assuming men have other things, spanners, having to get up 4 times in the night to go for a slash, stuff like that. It's
There's so much about that sentence that no one within a mile of me would know anything you just said. I got it. I got it. But I don't know if anybody else would. I know the spanner reference from Danger Mouse. There's a callback for you. Huge Danger Mouse fan. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. So, yeah. No, I love it. You're 100% right. Back on the pitch, Ted runs up and apologizes for being late. He says, I was helping the boss pick out a nail polish color. And he showed him. Showing his nails.
And he's like, I like this one's good, but I like them all.
Yeah.
And both Beard and Nate are like, Beard says we've got a problem. And Nate, never being one to over-dramatize things, we've got a Shakespearean effing tragedy.
Yes.
And it cuts to Dani taking a penalty or a free kick, and he skies the ball. Like, it's not even near.
Jan Mass says, wow, we're watching the end of someone's career. Sam says, not now, Jan.
Not now, Jan.
Oh, Ted tells Dani that he suffered an unlikely and tragic coincidence, not unlike those seen in Thomas Anderson's 1999 opus Magnolia. Then we have to go off on a 90-second banter about Tom Cruise's hair.
Because Dani goes, is that the one where he's got a tiny little ponytail?
Yes.
And Ted goes, no, I think you're thinking about The Last Samurai. And Beard, who's always walking behind Ted, like 10 paces behind him, goes, you had a tiny little ponytail in Magnolia too. And it's a nothing bit, but it shows that shared brain that Ted and Beard have, but also that even though they're trying to help Dani, they're still prepared to have a conversation about Tom Cruise's tiny little ponytail. It's just, it doesn't help anyone.
And the only person this wreaks havoc on is the guy who takes insanely elaborate notes on the episodes. Okay? Because I'm like, Ted ponytail, what? And I'm like, yeah. So that's always fun. Ted wants Dani to have fun and kick some corners. He tells the guys to line up for Midnight Poutine, which is a callback to season 1 for their trick plays. What was it they called the trick plays in season 1?
Set pieces.
Set piece. Yeah. It's a callback to episode 10 of season 1. Last episode. There you go. Dani lines up, kicks the ball straight into Ted. And again, Dani Rojas is the Kota Ibushi of football here on this show. So, this ball had to hurt. I mean, the ball, hard enough to kill a dog. Okay. So we understand this is not going to help Dani psychologically. Back in the office, Ted is hurting and doesn't know what to do about Dani. Here's the line, Jay. Nate says he needs some motivation. They could just short him his goddamn paycheck. And at that point, let me ask you guys this. At that point, is it time to go, Nate, can we take a break and talk? Is there something on your mind?
I think they're distracted at this point because they're that concerned about Dani. They kind of, because Ted sort of says something like, well, it'd be my own fault to take an umbrella to a brainstorm if I ignored you there.
Yeah, he kind of says, "Oh, I'll take it on board," but that's not how we do stuff. There's also when he thinks, I'm more stumped than Paul Bunyan's local forest, which I thought was a fun joke as well. But they eventually decide to agree on. Well, is Higgins there at this point?
Higgins brings
Diamond Dogs are together.
Yeah, and Higgins brings up a sports psychologist, which is very much a thing that happens not just in football, pretty much every sport.
Well, Beard says, well, I think we know what it is, don't we? And Ted goes, well, you talk about Willis. And he's written on the board the yips. And Nate goes, the yips, and they're like, it's like saying Macbeth if you're an actor, or soccer if you're an English footballer.
I love the fact as well, like throughout this episode, whenever anyone mentions it, Ted and Beard are just like,
the second time they say it, Beard gets up and slams the door shut, so like the changing room doesn't hear it, and I'm like, I don't think they care. But yeah, it's basically is when a sportsman can't perform the basic functions of their sport, and it does happen. It's more prevalent in. I know it's quite a big thing with darts players, the yips apparently, because it's very,
I've seen it in baseball. I've seen it in baseball over here for sure.
Football.
Yeah,
but
it happens.
And so they agree to like get a sports psychologist in.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation all by itself. But we'll get there. It's
interesting. Ted's reaction to it immediately, which Beard picks up on, is just straight up apprehension. Like he's like, oh yeah, well I suppose if you think it'll help, maybe it's a good idea.
Yeah. It's very subtle.
Yeah, he does kind of like immediately address it to Beard when it like because it cuts to the pub, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. We'll go the double date. Yeah.
Well, Ted says, yeah, let's do it, doesn't he? Let's get one in. What's the worst that can happen, sort of thing.
Right.
Is it the double date? This double date.
Yes.
Painful.
It took me ages to work out who this guy was. And he is David Brent's boss from the UK office.
Right. Yep. I knew I recognised him.
It took me so long, and then I was like, that's who he is. Yeah.
Patrick Ballady.
And I knew I thought he was a bellend.
He plays a very good. he plays a very good, just not horrible, just boring
smarmy
person.
Prick.
Yeah,
tacky.
Telling this long story about trying to beat up Martin Short over a lost wallet or something. And
every story he has is about him getting into a fight.
Him nearly getting into a fight.
Yeah.
But it's great because like Rebecca's going, oh really? And Roy's just like necking his drink and passing it to a waiter, going, can I have another one? Every time they come past, like I'll need two at one point for this. And
I love that Roy immediately sees through his bullshit as well.
Oh mate.
Yeah.
The bit after this is like when I go, Roy's a lot more deep than we give him credit for. But again, we find out that he goes, well, I'm telling this story and I'm sat here with, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere, Roy Kent. And Roy's just like, football fan then. And he's like, what team do you support? Oh, I flip between United and City. And even I, as a non-sports person, you can't jump between teams.
Well,
even if your team's rubbish.
I flip between United and City depending on who's doing better.
Best. Yeah.
And it's like, that's like two local rivals. Like, you can't do that.
You can't do that. I know that. You could have like an international team maybe or something.
I'm not sure that's legal.
No, I think that's grounds for a weekend in the stocks.
Yeah. It's like having a meeting at lunchtime.
He's a sap. We've got friendlier words to describe him besides douchebag. He's a sap.
Yeah.
He's tacky. He's creepy. Like, yeah, it's his nature. It's who he is. And the character's name is John Wingsnight, which is great.
I love that joke actually Ted says.
I love the name.
Where he's like, oh, wings night. Oh, yeah, like when they're serving chicken wings at happy hour.
Yeah. I love the name because it kind of sounds not distinguished, but it sounds proper, I guess. Wings night. To me, in my ears, it sounds. But then you see the guy and you're like, this guy's a clown, man. He's terrible. Yeah. He's nobody you want to date for sure.
I love like the more kind of social Roy's having to be as well. He's just like,
yeah,
can I have another one, please?
Yeah.
But he grabs the waiter at the end. He's like, I'm going to need two.
Yeah. And he's not shy about telling him because he says he's into coaching and he says West London under 9 girls. And he doesn't shy away from that at all. And he mentions, Wingsnight mentions his, Roy's retirement speech. There's the second mention of Roy's retirement speech. He says, the first time that my father forwarded me an email in the last 5 years, it wasn't about the scourge of immigration. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
was that his dad's perspective or is that your perspective?
That was his dad's perspective. I'm assuming he is one of those people that is rich, is like a not a nepo baby, but he's rich because his father's rich. He hasn't actually done anything to warrant that money. He's just maintained it, and but these people seem to think that they're better than other people because they have money, even though they've not earned it themselves, sort of thing. It's a whole thing. You have it in America, we have it here. It's horrible, and they're the worst people. And like Roy sees through it because Roy is from working class roots. Roy is still essentially working class because he gets his watch nicked regularly.
But he doesn't need a watch and a phone.
Yeah,
that's right. Over here, we call a person like that who's entitled and looks down on people and is a horrible person. A guy like that can get elected president in this country. Hey kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. BOINK, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. Hey, I'm just saying.
He is one of those. He's just like kind of narcissistic and not self-aware of how bad he's doing in that conversation as well. Because you can see that like no one's really listening during that story he's telling, that anecdote he's telling. Everyone's just sort of like, oh, let's get through this and then we can go home. And
very true.
And like the end of the meal, and he's like, oh, I'll see you again for lunch next week. And
it's interesting, isn't it? Because he gives her a kiss, and like Rebecca's really reluctant about it.
She kind of flinches when he kisses her.
But also, he asks her if she wants to go back with him, and she's like, "Oh well, I'm going with Roy and Keeley.
I've got an early start in the morning,
Yeah, and it's almost like they're here out, so she doesn't have to go back with him.
Which is why she brought them.
Yeah,
and very true.
There's that great scene where like she asks Keeley,
"Oh, mate,
what do you think?"
This
and
is
Keeley's
brilliant.
Like, oh, he seems really nice, and Roy's just getting angrier and angrier.
Keeley goes, "He's a really good match. He's age appropriate, financially appropriate. He's not shy." And Rebecca goes like, "Yeah, I like that about him." And then Roy goes, "Fucking hell!" Like,
tell the truth.
And he goes, "Tell the truth. He's fine. A lot of people are fine, but it's not about him. It's about you. How the fuck do you think he deserves you? You deserve someone who makes you feel like you've been struck by lightning. Don't you dare settle for fine." And I'm like, where has this come from, Roy? But Roy's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it maybe not the first time, but it's definitely one of the first times. I think there is like a little exchange between Roy and Rebecca throughout season one, and you can see like they've got like this kind of relationship where he's just brutally honest with her.
They respect each other because of their brutal honesty.
Yeah, and she's the same with him as well. But yeah, it's very. This is kind of like the sort of first like big moment of their friendship, I'd say.
But it is just one of those. It's just that you deserve someone who makes you feel like you've been struck by lightning. Don't you dare settle for fine. And I'm like, is this how Roy feels about Keeley? Is this his subtle way of telling her that he loves her, but also saying Rebecca, like, this guy's a plonker. This guy's a like A grade top level whammer. Like, you don't need him in your life. You can do better than this. Don't settle for this. You might have to search harder and longer, but this ain't you. I could tell you weren't having fun, like listening to his bullshit stories. Like,
and plus, Roy wraps it up with, "Not that it's any of my business," and he kind of looks away. Great, it's great. He almost feels the need to say, "Hey, no offense,
I've just pulled the entire evening apart, but also, it's nothing to do with me, though, if you choose to."
Boy, if somebody squared up with you like that and delivered that to you, if that doesn't put you on top of the world, nothing effing will. I mean, that had to have made, her emotion went from here to here in a split second. Like, that's how highly he not only wants me to think of myself, but maybe it's how highly he thinks of her to a degree as well. You know,
I think that it's how high he thinks of her. She deserves the best because of who she is and what she's done and what she's gone through. I think we said last season that we don't know who knew about Rebecca trying to sabotage the team, but Roy's not a duck egg. Like, he would have figured it out. He found that he got that card off the photographer. He would have seen that photograph. He would have realized where it came from. Like, he knows that what's happened and what's gone on. And I think that's what it is. He's you can do better. You deserve to do better. Don't settle for this. And it's just like a real. I don't know. Maybe it's the yoga mums.
I was thinking that maybe the yoga mums made them sort of like feel like that. But also the other thing is, Roy was like so good at motivating like his teammates when he was footballing, and he's got that like kind of that sort of like empty spot in his life where he's not motivating anybody. So when he's able to kind of like just like let that explode and like sort of impart that on Rebecca, it's like his way of kind of like letting off a bit of steam as well.
Yeah. It's good though. I really like this scene. She looks genuinely shocked, and then like, you are right though.
Again, it shows like the respect between Roy and Rebecca.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And plus, she's getting emotional support now. It's amazing. Like, put down your revenge scheme and understand there are people here who could emotionally help you. And now that she's let all that stuff go, there are people who were here to build her up. And Roy Kent, of all people, is one of them, which is
she
crazy.
Has friends. She has friends.
We did skip past. Oh, for the first, well said, for the first time ever. We did skip past the bit in the Crown and Anchor because that happened before this. We see May, played by Annette Badland, who mentions that Earl and his owner used to come in all the time until he started going to the bathroom all over the place. And she's talking about Nigel, not the dog.
It's a good switch.
It's really good. Ted says, "Hey, Coach, can I get real for a second? Forget my meal a second." Beard says, "Put down your beer and tell your buddy how you feel a second." And this is a bit of Hamilton from the song called Right Hand Man, when George Washington sings, "Can I be real for a second, for just a millisecond?" So yeah. Ted says, "I'm all for whatever it takes to help Dani get back to being 100, but this whole idea of bringing someone in from the outside to help us get him there, I don't know. It just kind of puts a little knot in my belly. I'm not sure why." And Beard says, "Sounds like it might be your favorite Jim Blossom song. Follow You Down? No. Hey Jealousy. No, Hey Jealousy is their first song. My favorite song of theirs is Follow You Down. You don't know that story?" And then, of course, we got to go to another story, which is nice. Coach Beard says, "Do you remember what you said when I got dumped by that cruise ship dancer and swore I would never date another dancer again?" Ted says, "Can I have your tap shoes?" And Coach Beard says, "All people are different people." Ted goes, "I said that? That's pretty good." And Ted says, "You went out with another dancer, though?" And Beard goes, "Many. Too many."
Too many.
Great.
Well, I like the fact that like Ted doesn't even remember half the stuff he says. He just throws out this spiritual wisdom willy-nilly.
It's like reactionary.
Like a geezer of wisdom.
Yes.
And he doesn't remember the stuff he said. Like, because like people are different people isn't like incredibly profound or anything, but it stuck with Beard.
Yeah.
It's just what Ted does, isn't it?
It doesn't mean much until you break it down and you go, "Oh, it's kind of deep." Yeah.
Ted mentions about how like going through the therapy sessions with Rebecca, Michelle, kind of like made him uneasy.
I thought it was going to be a way to solve our problems, but it just basically became me sitting there hearing about what I've done wrong, or words to that effect is what he says. So it turns out like the marriage guidance thing they went through wasn't helpful at all.
Bit more foreshadowing there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well done. Well done. Yeah. Again, no wasted movement, kids. Foreshadowing everywhere. We get a little bit of Earl's memorial outside and a little dog pees on it, which is very fitting.
It's very British. Yeah.
Very fitting,
amount amount of flowers you see tight the lamppost where people have been killed in car accidents that are just covered in piss.
It happens here too. I'll tell you a trend that happens over here is that people go get decals made and put on like the back of their truck. It's the truth. You know, R.I.P. Grandpa.
Oh, not the driving crooner.
No, in loving memory, Grandma. And I'm like, who are you putting that in there for? The guy that's driving behind you?
Yeah, but it's the thing of like, it's the people that put like on Facebook and Twitter. It's like, oh, happy birthday, Granddad. You've been dead 37 years. But I'm like, who is this for? He hasn't got Twitter in heaven or hell.
You know what my favorite post is? Happy birthday to my grandpa in heaven. Happy heavenly birthday. And I'm thinking, you need a hobby. You need to watch TV, go for a walk, get a dog.
That thing where you burn wood like into shapes and stuff. Get into that. That seems like an easy pick.
That's very obscure, but I'm here for it. Just do something.
No, I watch a lot of late night shopping, so like there's always people.
Well, there you go.
Making really fancy birthday cards for people. It seems to be the thing that is very popular at the moment. And I'm like, I open it, I go, cheers. There's no money in it. Goes on the side.
Thanks for the card. Yeah.
Put some cash in it next time.
Yeah. By the way, do we all have the go-to move? Do y'all have the go-to move of right when you hold a card, you have positioned your thumb inside, expecting to grab cash with the thumb? Like, you don't know you're doing it, but you just do it out of instinct. I do it all the time.
I mean, I'd take Pizza Hut vouchers at this point, but
that's true.
Hey. Back in Ted's office, the guys are swatting around a ball of paper. Higgins walks in with Dr. Sharon Fieldstone, debut, played by Sarah Niles. This, I'm telling you, I don't know if you guys know the show Good Times. This character looks like Esther Roll, who played Florida Evans in Good Times. I'm telling you, to the hair, to everything. And the first time I saw her, I said, she looks like Florida Evans from Good Times.
I only know that from a cutaway gag in Family Guy. Yeah.
She looks a lot like her, actually. Ted gets up and does a nice to meet you dance, which is like, he's really going to it as well. This nice to meet you dance.
Well, like, Baird's going in the corner as well. Like.
And Nate's into it. He's bopping his head. Everyone's happy. And she ignores the entire thing. Like, I think she asked him, what is this?
But she says that's two weird things that have happened since I've come into the room.
Oh,
like proper ER about it. Like she's just there's no joy in her. It's
again,
like,
though, like that's kind of like the way Rebecca was in the first season when like Ted and Beard have got their own little world that they're in and they're bringing it into and everyone else is kind of like getting sucked into that.
Yeah,
and so she's like an outsider coming in. So what seems really normal to them, she's like, what the fuck's going on here? Why are these guys? am I in a football club or a school?
Also, Ted refers to her as Doc, and she goes,
yeah. That pays off later as well.
No, but Ted's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, he immediately apologizes because, like, okay, fair enough. I was just trying to do a bit, but yeah.
Like as soon as she puts him in his place, he's like sat straight, and he's like,
yeah.
It's a real person.
Yeah,
it's an outside person, and he has to pretend to be a professional. Not that he isn't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you're right. This is his inner circle in the office with him right now. Here comes an outsider, and he has to. Yeah, no, I get it. She calls him on that later. Yeah. Let's don't forget that she calls him on that, which is interesting. She got him figured out already. So they do the bit about the yips, and they don't want to say it, and she's like, she's not approving of this at all. She says the yips are not a superstition. They're a mental condition. And Ted asks if she can help them with Dani. She says, Coach Lasso, are you good at your job? He looks around for a second. She goes, don't worry about them. Are you good at your job? And he says, yes. And she goes, well, if you're as good as you are at your job, I'm twice as good as at mine. And it gets real quiet for a second. And the guys go with their, suddenly they go, well, we're lucky to have you here. They all kind of read the room and they realize this chick ain't playing. She's serious.
No, yeah, she's proper. She's a proper human and not a weird caricature of a man-child. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is that weird thing though, is that they all immediately go, "Oh, okay, well, thank you, doctor," and yeah, she sort of, but then but again, it's this little bit at the end as they were batting that paper ball around. What's your record?
Yeah.
And they respond with, was it 1,200? It's exactly the same number. Exactly the same number that Keeley had. And on the not Keeley.
Phoebe.
Yeah, on the thing. It's just, again, just one of those weird little lovely idiosyncratic things
And
that happen.
It's great because the doc, it seems to last forever. She goes, impressive. And then walks out. And I'm like, she actually meant that. That wasn't her being coy. But it took forever to get the line out. And I'm like, I think I'm going to like this character. It's pretty cool.
Because she was processing it and going, that is quite a long time to smack a ball of paper between two people.
And Beard brings it home and he goes, she seems fun.
She seems fun.
Oh, that's great.
And Higgins goes, oh, you can have my office. Because they kind of look around and there is that like room off to the side, isn't there?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But Nate seems to work out that. But there's a lot of space in there for Nate. But Higgins offers his office up, and then does it then hard cut to them going. She goes, "Are you doing this out of kindness, or like, should I have this room?" He goes, a bit of both. It's just like he's so eager to please, isn't he, Higgins?
Yeah,
he is. Ted brings Dani in, and she asks Dani, says, "How do you feel?" And he says, "Like a murderer."
Like a murderer.
Oh man.
Well, like Ted says, "Oh, do you want me to like stay and like introduce you and stuff?" And she goes, "No," and kind of not forcefully, but like ushers him out the door. And then,
but again, like, it's the whole like, are you good at your job? I'm twice as good at mine.
Yeah.
And then straight away she starts speaking to him in Spanish, and it's like,
like,
she isn't fucking around.
Ted walks through the door, and before the door shuts, she starts talking to him, and Ted goes, "Huh?" and turns around for a split second, because Ted's never tried to speak to him in Spanish. Ted's never tried to learn, like, and is that twice as good?
Yeah.
And we get the Sir John Wings night back here again. The stellar chump in the restaurant with Rebecca. And she has like this out of body experience where she no longer is in the same room. I have these every 3 minutes, actually, where you're just not. I do, where you're not in the conversation, you're not in the room, you're somewhere else. Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's not a conversation. It's him talking at her.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
And so you've got time to just look around and realize.
We've all been there, haven't we, where we're like talking to someone who we're kind of like not that bothered about talking to, and you just find yourself kind of drifting in and out of the conversation a little bit.
You occasionally just come back and you go, yeah. Oh,
exactly.
Sure.
We've all been there.
Really? Like, if it seems like a dramatic bit, they never. The rotters. Yeah.
Like when you get stuck talking to someone at work or in the pub.
Yeah. Like the boring guy in the pub, but he corners you because everyone else has gone for a wee or whatever. Or they've gone outside for a smoke and you're like, I'll have to talk to Derek. Here we go.
That happened to me at All In, actually.
And he starts telling you about I had a trial for Chelsea once.
Oh, like literally, it was that. Like, me and Troy were in this pub in London, and Troy, like, as you know, Joe, Troy like smokes like a fucking chimney.
Yeah.
Like when he's had the drink, he's like in and out he's in and out like every 2 minutes. So I was just sat there, and there was like a footy match. I think it was Chelsea and Luton was on, and there was this fella who was just like, oh yeah, I've been brought in because the trains are on strike. I was like, all right, okay. And he was just telling me the story. I was like, where the fuck is Troy?
But you do that thing as a British person. You do that thing of going, all right,
yeah,
good.
I kept trying
intently stare at the screen.
Yeah.
And then they'll keep going. And you feel obliged due to English politeness to just go, is that so?
After a while, when I realized like he wasn't going anywhere, I was like, right, I need to find some common ground so I can at least talk to this guy about something. I was like, oh, do you support either of these teams? No, great.
You ever been hang gliding? Nah, me neither. I don't know.
Do you walk around and wear Just
You
go
like
to the
hair?
basics. Do you walk around and wear clothes? Hey, me too. Let's talk about that.
I see you have eyes. I also have eyes. Yeah, it is, but I don't know whether it probably is a very similar thing in America, but it is an oddly peculiar thing that you like. They'll do it, and you'll be giving like massive fuck off and leave me alone vibes, and they don't see it because they're just like, I want someone to talk to. I'm a lonely person, and I'm like, that's fine, but have something interesting to talk about, and they won't have anything interesting to talk about.
They'll talk about themselves.
Yeah, I don't know you, old man.
Great.
Did you kill Hitler and Bigfoot? Right. No, you didn't. So it's not going to get any more exciting than that, is it? I worked in the button factory. How many buttons do you think I had?
When I went down the mines.
8 buttons, yeah.
There's a line from South Park that just jumped in my head with Officer Bar Brady when she says, "Do you know who I am?" And he says, "Well, you ain't Fiona Apple. If you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass who you are." I love that. I don't know why they just popped in my head.
Line, though, isn't it? If
it
Ted
is.
Was nasty.
Oh man, yeah.
Back to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for back from the break. Yeah, she. What's funny is she sees a woman at the bar by herself. She sees a couple who were not looking at each other; they're just looking at their phones. Then she sees another couple who were into each other, and she gets that moment of, I guess she's hearing Flo in her head because Flo once said intimacy because she brings it out to this guy. She interrupts him and says, a friend of mine once said intimacy was all about leaving yourself open to being attacked. Yeah. And he's suddenly like, doesn't know how to process that. And she says, you have to be brave, and she said, I need to be brave enough to let someone in who's wonderful enough to love me without fear of being hurt and without fear of being safe. And he's like, are you breaking up with me? So he automatically catches on. And then she's like, she realizes it and she apologizes and says, I'll get this. I'll pay for this. And he goes, fair enough, and says, cheers. And to his credit, he could have been a douche and he was not. So that was kind of cool that he didn't take the low road.
Astute thing he's done in the 2 scenes we've seen him in.
Thank you. Yeah, he could have been a douche.
This is feels kind of like the final step of Rebecca's healing process. The last thing that she kind of had to do was sort of realize her own self-worth.
That's it. She needs to learn to respect herself.
And she's realized that by not just settling for the first guy who's showing her a bit of interest. And obviously, as Roy said, you need someone that makes you feel like this, not just some guy who's fine.
Don't settle for fine. Yeah. It is one of those things, and I'm assuming that he gets this a lot. Wings night, he gets a lot of women going, "Yeah, I'm gonna leave," and I imagine he gets stuck with a lot of bills because he's boring as hell, isn't he? Mate, he's not asked her about anything. He's just telling his dumb stories. I don't care. It's like, I've got mates of mine who will tell me about their work constantly. The first thing, this happened at work the other day, and I'm like, oh, all right, great, something interesting. And it's not. It's just what happened? And I'm like, that's not a story. That's just like a photographic memory of what happened that day. Nothing interesting ever happens to me at work, right? If I tell you about my work, something fun has happened. I've had a funny name to write to or something like that. Right?
Yeah, that's literally it.
Yeah, but otherwise, I don't care. It's your job. You go there to earn money so I can go and drink with you in the pub, or we can go and do other stuff.
Yeah, another pop culture reference popped in my head, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, when Steve Martin's telling him, here's an idea. Next time you want to tell a story, have a point. It makes it much more interesting for the listener. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of being like a chatty Cathy doll, except no one's pulling the string. You're pulling the string yourself, so you're just constantly doing this. Yeah.
And there's no more farts in the head of the chatty Cathy dolls either.
Oh my.
Oh, I thought you'd have got that one, Jay, but fine.
No, I got it.
Farts in the head. But you've got to be over 18 pounds to... Never mind, it's fine.
Don't worry
you
about it.
lost me there, sorry, bud.
Don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry about it. Yep. Back on the pitch, we get the return of Dani Rojas, who's suddenly happy.
They're all
carefree.
running drills.
Yes. He's singing. He comes out. Hello to my beautiful coaches.
He comes out. Dani Rojas. He comes out like he did the first time we saw him. And Ted's like, what? And okay, coach, football is life, but it is also death. And he's like,
Yes.
Dr. Sharon helped me. And he asks asks permission if he can go and train.
It's great.
So, like, it shows that they all respect Ted as well. Like, to ask his permission for stuff. And he's off. Hey, Dan. And he's doing Dani Rojas stuff then, isn't he? Like, he's back on top form.
Ted turns around to wave.
And she just ignores him. And he goes, she didn't see me. And Beard's like, nope.
She's
saw you.
She's got it.
But I love when, like, Dani goes, like, steps up to take the corner. And they all cross their fingers again.
Yeah. She keeps moving in the stands. Every time he's like, I swear, I think she's moving every time. And she kept moving. Oh, my God. That is so good. She did legit kept moving closer to him.
I don't know whether it's a callback to or, but like when Beard was having a fight with Ted and he moved down the opposite end of the field in that one shot just very quickly. It's just daft stuff, but
yeah,
that's like the comedy part of this incredibly touching coming of age drama that is Ted Lasso. Ted
Lasso at his best is a Looney Tunes character. Like,
yep,
in the best possible way, entertaining. Ted Lasso is Bugs Bunny, except that Bugs isn't trying to hurt anybody. He doesn't want to, shoot Yosemite Sam. He doesn't want his villains to get their comeuppance the hard way. Like, he's just, it's great.
Ted is Bugs Bunny filled full of the inside of fortune cookies.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
He doesn't even remember the stuff he said. He just spouts out this etheric wisdom to the universe, and it sticks with people.
Well, Ted goes to thank the doc, and Beard says, "The least you can do," and he delivers it very matter of factly. In other words, like, he doesn't want to tell Ted, "You got to get over this no therapy business because this is going to help. This is going to be good for the team." But he's
literally seen what it can do.
Right, but without saying all that, he says it with this line. So he basically has told him, "Least you can do." And what's funny is Colin comes out of the office and he's like, "She's very good."
Yeah,
which is great.
And Ted, is Higgins still sat on his little table at the side of his fight as well? And he goes, "Oh, I'll just go in and speak." And hang on, no, is it Zorro? Is next in, yeah,
Zorro.
And like he's jumping the queue, like, and he goes in and she starts speaking to him in French,
which is awesome.
Yeah, again, it's just twice as good as you.
Yeah.
And the last scene of this episode, Keely calls Roy, apologizing for trying to get him to do something he doesn't want to do. She offers to get him some wine from Waitrose, which I assume is upscale. Yes?
It's a very, very, very posh supermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, "Who am I talking to? The fucking queen?"
Yeah.
Which is probably the adequate response.
Yeah. Waitrose is like above Marks and Spencer's in my eyes.
Yeah.
I bought a sandwich from Waitrose once and I felt like a class traitor. I was starving. She says like, "Oh, are you with your yoga mums? All right, I'll leave you to it."
Yeah, they gather in front of the TV watching a reality show called Lust Conquers All. The women are heckling the show. Jamie is on the show. He's dumb as ever. He says, "I'm the island's top scorer, sexually," which is ridiculous.
Because the last before him does like quite a good pun. It's like, she's a beautician. You can't get rid of me. I'm the one that makes your lips stick. Like, that's quite like a pun, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean?
That's great.
And Jamie just goes, "I'm good at shagging." It's like he's got no levels to him, has he?
There's nothing.
It's one note, yeah.
There's nothing.
And
Roy asks Rose to top him off.
Roy goes, "Come on, Judy, top me off." Like,
it's great.
But then they're all like, "Oh, I love Jamie," and he just sits there seething, drinking his rosé wine.
I love though that call back to Alien in the episode. He's like, "Can I have another one, please?"
That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's the last scene of this episode. Guess what, kids? Episode 1 of season 2 is in the can. What's our biggest takeaways here, Joe, from this episode? What do we come away from this episode knowing, or the knowledge that you have, or what you're feeling going out of this episode heading into number 2?
We've seen Nate's mask start to, I wouldn't say slip, but I'd say like fracture. Just because I don't think he knew that this was the kind of person that he was. We start to see the beginning of that. We start to see Ted's sort of big emotional arc with dealing with therapy in terms of his panic attacks and all that stuff from the first season. And we also get like Rebecca's journey of self-worth. Like, and this is all in the first episode. This, like, literally, if it was any other sitcom, this would be like, this is what happened in the previous season, just in one episode, sort of thing. Like, they'd just rehash it all. Do you remember last season when this happened? And then they'd show a clip of that or something. When they're straight out the gate, we're moving on. Again, no wasted movement.
Yeah, got a story to get to. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, pretty much what Joe said. The other thing you didn't touch on, which I will, is Roy coming to terms with his retirement and like life after football.
Yeah,
and I've got to leave you something.
Yeah, no, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. That I feel like that's like an integral part of this series, is like Roy kind of like finding his own identity after pretty much the only thing that he's not ever known, like falling away from him. So he's got to find some like meaning somewhere else, and it's not necessarily the most like emotionally complex story line of the whole series, but I think it's a very rewarding one because of like it's just a fun journey to go on with him.
Yeah, I said Roy is the funnest character because he's. I would put Roy as the everyman in this.
Roy's like Fonzie at this point. Just angrier and not going to go water skiing over sharks.
No.
Just think that somebody jumped the shark. That reference comes from Happy Days of all places.
Yeah.
It's in pop culture in this country. When we say jump the shark, we're all referencing Fonzie on Happy Days. Like,
if you haven't seen, they do reference it heavily in the British sitcom 2 Pints of Lager and a Packet of Crisps, when one of the main characters leaves and he won a trip to jet ski over some sharks. Like, literally, they don't hide it subtly. I mean, 2 Pints of Lager was never very subtle anyway, but it is just a fun little thing of going, they know where it's coming from. Yeah.
Step down the road from me, that show.
The first couple of seasons of that are tremendous. Would recommend. They're showing them on BBC Three. Runcorn.
Yeah, set in Runcorn, which is on a bus route from my house. About 45 minutes on the bus. Would not recommend going there. Not very nice place.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Well,
unless you're from Runcorn listening to this, in which case
unless you go to watch Infamous Wrestling, then it's quite good. We'll save there because I realised that I'm pretty sure someone who wrestles for that company does listen to this.
Oh,
dig upwards, Jay. Dig upwards.
Up.
And for that person listening and or watching and or both, we here at Two Nations tend to get distracted. So like we just kind of ramble about stuff that's not even about the show. Don't take offense to it.
No.
We had a whole half-hour diatribe a minute ago about what was it? I can't even remember. It was
getting stuck talking to people in pubs.
Yeah, in pubs.
That's what it was. See, I'd already forgot.
It's the universal truth, though.
Yeah,
it's already forgot.
It is.
If you've never had that happen to you, you're the person that does that to people.
Oh. Yeah. Wow. Oy.
Maybe it doesn't happen to you much, then you're sometimes the person that does that to people. And then it's karma when you get stuck with that person.
That's right.
Call the karma police.
I'm telling you, they'll come get you. They're not happy. Well, we're taking this home before we spend another 20 minutes on something I'll forget 20 minutes after the fact. That is episode 1 of season 2. Fist pump time. I'm very happy. Not because we see it end. I just love doing this, and I love when we make progress because I love talking about this. So we hope you love listening to it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. As we said at the kickoff, thank you for your support. Please continue to share the show on your social channels. Please follow us on social at Two Nations Pod. We are now on TikTok, actually, at Boink Studios. Boink Studios is the production company from which you will find Two Nations under Ted Lasso Podcast, Tom Clark's Main Event, and Tom Clark's 6M Podcast. So there you go. So go check us out on all your socials. Follow us. We'll follow you back. Like, subscribe, follow the show. We'll appreciate it. And we're going to deliver a lot more. We're just getting started, kids. Episode 2 coming very soon. For Joe and Jay, I'm Tom. We'll see you next time.